V Rising is a very, very fun game. The premise of the game is you start off as a vampire who just awoken from his slumber, and the humans have basically killed and went on a rampage and killed all the vampires, and you as a vampire are coming back for your revenge. You basically have to, from the ground up, find a place to build a castle, start building your castle, and then from there you got to collect gear resources to get more powerful. And as you get more powerful, you're going to fight various bosses and unlock various abilities to help you advance and get to the final boss of the game. There's a big open world. It's fairly large. I don't think it's randomized. I'm pretty sure everything's just consistent in everyone's game. It's just one world, but there's a lot to do, a lot to explore, and there's a lot of enemy encampments, a lot of different enemy variety, and a lot of different bosses, and some bosses are very unique compared to others. But for the first thing I want to talk about was the overall gameplay. So it plays like a survival game mixed with action RPG combat, and the action RPG is definitely inspired by games like Diablo, where it's the eagle eye, and then you have your abilities where you can click certain keys on your keyboard to activate an ability, and then all of your abilities are at the bottom in like a hotbar sort of way, and then as well you also have your weapons in the same hotbar. So basically you can have different types of spells, and then your weapons can also have different type of actions or moves that you can do with them, and your spells are basically what you can get when you defeat certain bosses. You can find these like orbs that give you the ability to unlock new spells, and as you unlock new spells, you'll basically just become more powerful, and then as you unlock more gear, you become stronger with health and damage, and that will increase your gear level, which gear level is like basically just leveling up in this game. There isn't necessarily a set level up, you just have to get better gear, and as you get better gear you can face better enemies, and then you can, from there you can keep going on and facing better bosses. One of the main things about V Rising is the castle building aspect. As you're playing, you're going to be chopping down a lot of wood, a lot of stone, a lot of copper, stuff like that, and then from there you're going to be going back to wherever you set your home to be, and you're going to be using different types of generators to make different types of planks and stone and bricks, so that you can eventually build this giant castle where you can have storage, crafting stations. You'll be able to have like your coffin, which is where you'll respawn, essentially like a bed in Minecraft, and then also you'll have your servant coffins, which I will get into a little bit later. V Rising isn't super complex on paper. It's just go here, get more stuff, fight boss, go back to your base, build up base, get more gear, and all that. Progression is revolved almost entirely around these boss fights though. So whenever you defeat a boss, you unlock certain crafting recipes and certain abilities that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And some of these abilities can sometimes be the ability to transform into a creature. For example, one of the earlier ones you get is the ability to transform into a wolf. And as a wolf, you can run faster, and you can also jump through walls, which is very cool. And there's some other ones you can transform into. So far I've unlocked the rat and the bear, and the bear is pretty good because it also is able to attack, and it can also break down certain barriers that block you from getting into certain areas. On the other hand, the rat is just a rat. Later in the game, you're able to unlock a ability to transform into a different version of your vampire. So what this does is it lets you take control of humans, and when you take control of humans, you can bring them back to your castle, and then you can put them in your servant coffin that you'll make eventually after defeating certain bosses and progressing the missions. And when you make the servant coffin and get your servant can go on various quests and do various tasks for you once you create a throne. So the servants are actually very useful, and they're honestly probably one of the better things about this game, because you can make like an army of humans that can just do different tasks for you, so you don't have to be constantly grinding for materials every single day. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was the day-night cycle. So the way that this game works is, obviously, since you're a vampire, you're not going to be walking around during the day. Vampire's number one weakness is always known to be the sun. So during the daytime, you actually take damage. If you're out in the sunlight for too long, you'll eventually start to take progressive damage, which will kill you. But if you jump through the shadows, you should be fine. Just stick close to the trees, and you won't take much damage, and you're able to traverse in the daytime. It's just a lot harder, and certain boss fights are kind of like impossible during the daytime because they're in open areas that are a lot harder to navigate and stay out of the sun. During the nighttime though, free reign. You can do whatever you want, go wherever you want. You won't take any damage, and then during the nighttime is the time that you will go and you'll fight most of the bosses and do most of the adventuring and gathering materials and all that. So it does stay true to the vampire lore in that way. The gameplay loop itself is pretty addicting, honestly. I found myself spending hours a day in the game just going around finding more materials, and then eventually I'll just go fight a boss, and then I'll be like, oh, you know, I kind of want to go fight another boss, and I'll go fight another boss, and I'll advance some more. And honestly, the gameplay loop is amazing. There are some things that I have found that I don't really like about the game so much, but fortunately they are tweakable. So some of these things include the amount of time it takes to craft certain items, and the amount of time it takes to have like a smelter smelt copper ore into copper. The issue with my issue with it is that it takes a very, very long time, even with the advantages, when you have it at set to base speeds. So the production rates are very, very slow, and that really annoyed me for a while because I'm playing fully single player and I'm not going to be on that long to grind the game. But I found out that you could tweak it and make it a lot faster, so that is what I did. I made them a little bit quicker because for me personally, I don't want to be waiting for like 20 minutes to get my stone and wood so I can build my castle bigger, or to get copper so I can make more gear. Also, sometimes the combat can be a little bit annoying because some enemies are just not necessarily harder, but they're just more of a sponge when it comes to damage. So I had to turn up my damage a little bit because I don't really like spongy enemies, and there are quite a few spongy enemies in this game, especially when you're playing it solo in a game that's supposed to technically be played with friends. It's kind of a co-op game, and it's mostly revolved around co-op, kind of like games like Ark. I personally, I don't have anyone that wants to play with me, and you know, at the moment I do like playing it by myself because it's a very chill time, and it's just fun. So I like the game and I want to play it even if I don't have friends that want to play it. Me personally, I do have to tweak some things to play by myself, but if you're playing with friends, none of this should really be much of an issue. Overall, I probably would give this game an 8 out of 10 because it's got great gameplay. If you're playing it the way it's supposed to be played with all the settings set to normal, it's very difficult to do solo. But 8 out of 10 seems fair to me. It's not an incredible game, it's not groundbreaking, but the game itself is honestly very fun. I highly recommend checking it out if you really like survival games, and if you really like vampires, and if you really like Diablo 4 combat. I was not expecting to like it that much, but I actually did end up enjoying it a lot. I do highly recommend this game to anybody that'd be interested in playing it. The game is currently out on Steam and PS5. I don't know if it's going to be coming to Xbox or anything anytime in the future, but those are the two that it is currently out and available on. So if you want to go check it out, if you have either of those platforms, I would recommend checking it out. And with that, it's going to be the end of this video.